everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about 1991's Point Break and its brand new Shout Select 4K Blu-ray that just came out. So this one was released back in 1991. It actually came out 1 week after Terminator 2, which is very significant because that movie was directed by James Cameron, and James Cameron gets an executive producer credit on this movie. That's because he was married to Kathryn Bigelow at the time, and the two of them actually reworked this script. Even though they don't get the credit for it, they're the ones who really made this script work. Actually, it was James Cameron who came up with the idea of the ex-presidents, so his fingerprints are all over this movie as well. So I'm sure back in July of 1991 there is a lot of happy faces in the James Cameron Kathryn Bigelow household. And this movie, even though Terminator 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time, Point Break isn't that far behind. I just love the 80s and early 90s cheesy action movies, and this one really is one of my favorites. Before John Wick, there was Johnny Utah, and at this point Keanu Reeves was really only known for the Bill and Ted movies. He also appears in the movie Parenthood, which I really love him in as well. But really, he wasn't the famous face that we know today. He wasn't Keanu Reeves yet. Now, Patrick Swayze, who plays Bodhi in this movie, he was already Patrick Swayze. The year before this, he appeared in Ghost, but he had already appeared in Dirty Dancing and Roadhouse, which I just love him in Roadhouse. So he was perfect casting in this movie as well, and he is just so handsome in this movie. That long hair with that 5 o'clock shadow, like, that's the look I wish I could pull off. It's probably never gonna happen. Patrick Swayze just nails it in this movie, playing a character who's the head of the ex-presidents. But in the beginning of this movie, Keanu Reeves does not realize that. He's an undercover FBI agent working under John C. McKinley, who plays an asshole in this movie, and he's always just so good at playing an asshole. He's great in this film.
Only you're a little fatter, you're a little slower, and a little more pathetic. For Christ's sake, it's like the blind leading the blind.
He gets teamed up with Gary Busey's character, you know, the older guy in the FBI squad. John C. McKinley looks at him as a screw-up, but he's still got a good heart to him. And Gary Busey, this is right after his motorcycle accident, his first film after that. So, you know, he just got his head all back in order, and he gives a great performance in this movie as well. Probably has the most famous line in this movie.
Utah, give me 2.
I love their relationship in this movie, and it's really showing the confliction in Johnny Utah, played by Keanu Reeves in this movie, because yes, he is a young FBI agent, really ready to prove himself. Everybody just looks at him as
Young, dumb, and full of cum.
Really not the kind of guy that's going to be taking the FBI by storm. But him and Gary Busey, they're working this case. They believe that the ex-presidents are surfer dudes. They don't suspect this group of people led by Bodhi, but once Keanu Reeves comes to the realization, no, it is them, he still has a commitment to his job, despite the fact that he's dating Tyler, played by Lori Petty, and I used to have a huge crush on Lori Petty. One of my first crushes ever, mainly because of Free Willy. She's great in that as well. And again, another actress that was just all over the early 90s, so one of the first actresses I really knew was Lori Petty, and she's great in this movie. Her and Keanu Reeves developed this relationship, you know, and the two of them have this connection. The Bodhi and the boys, they just don't realize that they're the ex-presidents robbing banks. So of course Keanu Reeves now, he's conflicted. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, I have my commitment to the FBI. That is my job. I have to do that. I can't be teaming up with bank robbers. But he loves the philosophy of Bodhi and the boys and how they're just really robbing banks to fuel their endless summer. They don't want to conform to the system. It's a very relatable tale, but unfortunately, you know, they're doing some damage, and as we get closer to the end of the movie, unfortunately, people start dying, and that's where, you know what, you might have this amazing philosophy and a good outlook on the world, but you went too far. And Bodhi, played by Patrick Swayze, really illustrates that perfectly. This guy, ultimately, he wants peace, and unfortunately doesn't want to conform to the system and get a regular job, but he just takes it one step too far, and he's the leader of these guys. These guys look to him for advice, and Keanu Reeves is trying to get that across to him, like, you know, you are the guy. This is where people come to. And Keanu Reeves really respects him. And that's why this movie was completely ripped off in 2001 by The Fast and the Furious. And actually, I'm going to make a video comparing the two just to prove how much of a ripoff that movie is. Pretty much, they hit every single plot beat that they do in this movie, right down to almost the exact same ending. But this movie, for me, is still better than The Fast and the Furious, and I really do think it's those quiet moments, like when they're jumping out of the airplane, and they have a few minutes where we just see them all in the air, bonding with each other. Like, it really does kind of feel like you're at peace at certain moments in the movie when they're in the ocean surfing. That's just something that cannot be replicated, and they tried. There is a 2015 remake of this movie that is just god-awful. They really missed the point of what this movie was. I get what they were going for, trying to modernize it. You know, instead of it being surfing, it's extreme sports, but it just does not work on any level at all. And we get so many great actors in this movie who also just, like, pop up in small roles. Like Tom Sizemore as the undercover DEA agent. He doesn't even get credit for this movie. Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers pops up in one scene. I thought that was pretty cool as well. You know, he ends up getting his foot blown off. The guys in the ex-presidents, they're really good as well. They're really doing a good job. They're just young guys, kind of just following along with Bodhi, but they play their parts very well. And the score to this movie, just again, like it captures that like peacefulness of the ocean while also capturing that action heavy scenes. This movie also has one of the best chase scenes, and it's on foot, where it's Keanu Reeves just chasing Patrick Swayze through the streets until eventually, he lands on his knee and he ends up shooting in the air, which was just ripped off in Hot Fuzz. Well, I guess it was paying homage because Nick Frost's character knew that was from Point Break, and he was doing that in the streets as well. I always love that, calling back to Point Break, just to show you that this is one of the greatest action films of all time. Is it a cheesy early 90s action film? Absolutely, and that's why I love it. Keanu Reeves is not going to win an Academy Award for this film. Nobody is expecting that. Nobody was expecting that. He does the best he can possibly do, and he does a great job. For a Keanu Reeves performance, he does a good job in this movie. I think that Bodhi, played by Patrick Swayze, is the standout performance in this movie, but I also really love Gary Busey in this. John C. McGinley playing an asshole is always good, and Lori Petty, she brings her charm to this film as well. She's not the conventional, stereotypical surfer girl that you would expect, but what she brings to this movie is just very, very special. And I don't think we've had an actress like Lori Petty. No one's ever market corrected her, but she was great back in the late 80s and early 90s, and I hope she's doing pretty well, because I do miss seeing her in films. So it's definitely a huge recommendation from me. If by chance you haven't seen Point Break, well, you're missing out, because this is one of the funnest action movies that you'll ever see. You're going to be sitting there with a shit-eating grin on your face the entire time, and you're not going to feel guilty about it, because this is just a great, fantastic, fun film. But we're also here today to talk about the 4K Blu-ray that just came out from Shout Select, and that's exactly what we're going to do right now.
I mean, hell, I guess we just must have ourselves an asshole shortage, huh?
Well, here it is, the Best Buy exclusive 4K Steelbook for the Shout Select release of Point Break on 4K Blu-ray. Now, I opted to get this. This is actually going to be my last Best Buy exclusive Steelbook, so it's kind of the end of an era for me. I did like the slipcover version that Shout Factory released themselves. I really liked how this Steelbook looked, and to be honest with you guys, there's a lot of different, like this blue in the background. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but it's like a matte, flat blue, while everything else, like the ex-president, so, obviously this is Patrick Swayze here on the cover. That stuff's like more of a glossy finish. The logo itself kind of fades from matte finishing to glossy finish. So it is a really nice Steelbook on the back. Same thing, you get the rest of the gang. They're glossy over the flat matte finish. I really love that. You come inside, you get 2 discs, 1 4K disc, and 1 Blu-ray disc. All of your extras are going to be on that Blu-ray disc. And they're the same exact extras that I had on my previous. This is a 2011 release, but it's the same as the 2008 release. It's got the same scan on it. So this is actually the first time we've received a new scan of Point Break in 15 years. And it was really long overdue. Just to start it off with the visuals, I mean, this Blu-ray compared to this 4K, it's night and day. This Blu-ray is completely useless. You can use it as a coaster now if you have this one. I mean, the visuals are just, it's night and day. It's ridiculous. Like, they're just so much more blurry. They're more faded on the regular Blu-ray. There's just no color pop to it. And when you jump to the 4K with Dolby Vision and HDR10, it just cleans everything up so well. Everything is an improvement visually from that previously released Blu-ray. But I did notice that they made some slight changes to the color temperature. I always felt like this film always had like a yellow-orange kind of tone to it. And for the most part, they retained that on this 4K Blu-ray. But there are certain scenes where I noticed that it was a little cooler looking than it used to be. And that just could be the HDR Dolby Vision cleaning it up, because when I actually put in the 1080p downscaled Blu-ray that's in here, it's still a very good Blu-ray, but the 4K is just so much brighter. You could just see the color gamut, the range of colors on the screen. Early in the movie, when they're in the FBI headquarters, like the lights in the background, you could just notice them, but it's not affecting the rest of the scene. Like John C. McGinley and Keanu Reeves, they still are colored perfectly. Their skin looks natural. You don't have to worry about it looking waxy, because they do retain the film grain pretty much throughout, but it's not something that's going to overwhelm me, which I really did appreciate. It's just the fact that they're able to hit those deep blacks while retaining the look of this film. I was very worried that we were going to lose that hazy look of the movie that this film is probably most known for, where it's almost got like this smoky background, like when they're inside the banks or inside the FBI agency. Like, they always had this hazy look to it, and I'm really glad that the 4K was able to maintain that look, because when I think of Point Break, I really do think of that hazy cinematography that they have, and I'm really glad that they retain that, because that's one thing when we go to 4K, sometimes we lose the tone of the movie, and they really didn't. They were able to maintain it while still bringing it to a modern day. The 2023 look of Point Break, it just looks phenomenal. I have no complaints about the visuals. It's a 10 out of 10. It maintains the light in the dark scenes, the scenes when they're on the beach playing football at nighttime or where they're surfing at night. It looked all right on the Blu-ray, but now it looks stunning on 4K. I mean, you're just going to have to see this to believe it. And that really is the shining star of the 4K, is the visuals, because the audio, I don't know if it's the same exact track, but it is a DTS HD 5.1. When I looked it up, it says that it's not a brand new track, so I'm sure it's the previous one. And for me, that's just very disappointing, mainly because this movie is an action-heavy movie, and there was so much stuff you could have done, even if you gave us a new mix DTS HD 5.1, really because it needed more bass. That was the biggest thing. It's got some rumble, but it's nothing really too special to it, and I really think it needed more bass. I also really felt like you could have made better use of the channels, and Adobe Atmos track would have just killed for this movie. If you've ever been in Adobe Theater and they show the scene of like the wave going left to right and how you could feel that wave around you, you know, we have scenes in this movie with waves just like that from the Adobe Theater. And Adobe Atmos track, imagine that in your home theater going from left to right like that, just filling up all the space. I mean, this really could have been one of the best Dolby Atmos tracks out there if they would have gave it to us. You know, I'm really happy that they gave us this huge visual upgrade. I just wish that the audio upgrade matched it. And as far as the extras go, they're all the same extras that were on the previous Blu-ray, but I really did love those extras, so I don't have too many complaints about it. There was 4 featurettes. They're all ported over to this 4K. It's really the best you're gonna get. If you edited them all together, it would be a pretty long documentary, but you know, they separate them, but still, you really get it behind the scenes with everybody, including Patrick Swayze, who's, you know, passed away since this movie was made and since those extras were made. And just hearing him talk about everybody in the cast, and it seems like everyone got along with him. They were calling him buddy. Everyone really loved Patrick Swayze, and Patrick Swayze didn't have a bad thing to say about anyone in this film. He only was just passing out compliments. Apparently, he was actually in Keanu Reeves' first film, and I thought that was pretty funny that they end up popping up together in this movie. He was just such a gentleman, it seemed like. I mean, we really lost a great one. I mean, everyone was doing interviews. John C. McKinley's doing interviews. Everyone just seemed like they were having a blast on this movie, and you could just see it on the screen. This movie is just one of those energetic, fun films, so I really love all the extras. You also get a deleted scene, the trailer, and that's really it. And even though there are ported over extras, I really appreciate them actually porting them over. I would have obviously liked a new looking back on documentary, but the fact we got extras at least, I could really, really appreciate that. So overall, I have to say, this is a great 4K Blu-ray. The only thing I'm really disappointed in is that we didn't get a Dolby Atmos track, or at least a new mix of an audio track, because I really think that this film really deserved it, because it is one of my favorite films of the 1990s, and it's got a huge cult following at this point. But the visual upgrade is so significant that I can actually recommend this 4K Blu-ray at full price. And if you can get this Steelbook, it's one of the nicer Steelbooks I've ever seen, and Best Buy's not going to be doing exclusive Steelbooks anymore, so from the packaging standpoint, because the regular version with the slipcover, it still looks really nice, but I really do think that this is one of those special Steelbooks, and I'm not a big fan of Steelbooks. I don't get them all the time, but this one stood out to me, and seeing it in person is even nicer than when you see it in the pictures, so it's definitely worth it if you can get this Steelbook. But if you get the regular slipcover version, that's no problem either, because it's still a fantastic disc, and just throw away that previously released Blu-ray because it's pretty much useless at this point. How would I rate this 4K Blu-ray on a score of 1 to 10? I would give this one a pretty damn solid 9 out of 10. And it's also Monday, guys, and that means it's time for our digital code giveaway. In Friday's video, I asked you guys 2 digital code giveaway questions. All you had to do was answer one in the comment section below, and as long as you did that, you came back to this video. I put your name on a magic wheel. I spun that bad boy 2 times. The 2 names it lands on, they have their choice, the digital codes that you've seen on your screen before you today. And I asked you guys, what was your favorite 1980s comedy, and what was your favorite spoof or satire film? And we got a lot for the Scary Movie franchise, which I really appreciate. I love those movies. We got some for Airplane. We got a couple for Spaceballs. Mel Brooks is the king of spoof comedy, so definitely glad that he popped up for a bunch of people. Some people said Robin Hood Men in Tights. Young Frankenstein popped up a lot. Austin Powers. I really go back and forth as my favorite, Young Frankenstein or Austin Powers. I really don't know. You'd have to catch me on the right day. Young Frankenstein is just the perfect spoof of the Universal monsters. Obviously more Frankenstein, but all the Universal monster films. So I love that movie as well. It's just too hard to pick a favorite, but even people picked MacGruber. I fucking love MacGruber. I really appreciate everyone who picked MacGruber, or Popstar Never Stop, Never Stopping. That's another one that we don't get too many of these we don't even really get comedies too much. Forget spoof comedies. So it's really cool that you guys picked those. 1980s comedies were just all over the place. Everyone has different taste in comedy, so we didn't really double up too much over there. And, you know, without further ado, I'm going to shut up and spin this magic wheel to see who our 2 winners are.
Taking the elevator, going up, got a lot of ground to cover, and I'm in love with the good life, can't give it up, make it to the top and keep climbing, I wanna live it up, the good life, I'm coming up, I'm coming up.
All right, right, Destroyer, gonna remove you. Spit again.
Taking the elevator, going up. Got a lot of ground to cover, and I'm in love with the good life. Can't give it up. Make it to the top and keep climbing. I wanna live it up. The good life. I'm coming up. I'm coming up.
And Mr. M. And there you have it, the Destroyer, and the return of Mr. M. Mr. M, actually, this is only the second week in a row that he's been on the Magic Wheel. He took a few months off. He was one of the early subscribers here to the channel, but he ended up falling off a little bit, and then he came back for the digital code giveaway, and his second week back, he ends up winning it. So congratulations, Mr. M and the Destroyer. Make sure you guys reach out to me at my email address, letstalkentmt@gmail.com. Or you can always reach out to me at X/Twitter or Instagram. Just direct message me and let me know which of the digital codes you want. And as long as the other winner didn't get it, that digital code is all yours. And it does happen to the point where people end up trying to pick the same digital code. So if you are one of the winners, make sure you reach out to me pretty damn fast so I can send that code over to you. And if you guys didn't win this week, don't worry about it. We do this every single week. So make sure you guys come back to this Friday's video where we will do this all over again. So thank you guys all so much for being here with me on another episode of Let's Talk. If you want to join the ranks of our channel members like our two producers, Jason Martin and John Doe Juggalo, you could do that. Or you could even join the tier of our directors with Kevin Kruger and Frank Rodriguez. I want to thank all of you guys. We also have a Friends of the Channel tier. You guys can pick any tier that is best for you, each of them having their different perks. But if you can't support the channel financially, don't you guys worry about it. The best way to support us is just by simply liking this video, subscribing to the channel, then just getting out in those streets or getting out in the water and telling your friends about us. And then we will be seeing you around.